Forget the skyscrapers and neon lights. This is New York before it was New York. Welcome to New Amsterdam before 1700, a crowded Dutch colony on the southern tip of Manhattan. With AI, we won't study maps. We'll step into the tight streets and feel the density of early colonial life, the most crowded corners of New Amsterdam. We begin at the city's crowded core, Fort Amsterdam. In the 1,650 seconds, this wasn't just a military base, it was a refugee camp of sorts. The Hartger's view shows us that the Director General's house, the barracks, and the church were squeezed tight within these earthen walls. Soldiers, servants, and officials lived cheek by jowl, their lives dictated by the drumbeat and the cannon's shadow. It was the most secure, yet most claustrophobic address on the continent. Move to the waterfront along Pearl Street, then known simply as the Strand. Vingboon's brushstrokes capture the prime real estate of the colony. These tall Dutch houses didn't have front yards. They opened directly onto the noisy, muddy riverbank. This strip was the colony's lungs, inhaling goods and exhaling wealth. If you lived here, your morning alarm was the shouting of stevedores and the creak of anchor chains right outside your window. Turn the corner into Brewer Street. The Castello plan reveals this block as the industrial engine of the town. It was the first street to be paved with cobblestones, not for beauty, but to keep heavy beer wagons from sinking into the mud. The air here was thick with the smell of roasting grain. Families lived above the vats, their children playing in streets slick with spilled ale and horse manure. Here lies the Heere Gracht, the gentleman's canal. It cut through the heart of the lower town. It wasn't a wide, romantic waterway. It was a narrow, busy ditch lined with wooden siding. The houses here stood shoulder to shoulder. Bridges crossed the water, acting as meeting points where housewives gossiped and merchants made quick trades. It was a dense corridor of water and brick, echoing with the sounds of a transplanted Amsterdam. At the foot of Broadway lay Ain't Markveld, the market field. This was the chaotic lobby of the city. Once a year, the cattle fair took over, turning this square into a riot of livestock and bargaining. Farmers from the outer Boweries parked their ox carts here, blocking the flow of traffic. It was a place of mud, dung, and money, where the city met the country in a noisy collision. Focus on 71 Pearl Street, the Stadhuis. Originally a tavern, it became the City Hall. This stone building was the magnet for the colony's drama. The crowd here was constant litigants waiting for court, prisoners in the stocks, and sailors looking for trouble. It was the Civic anchor, standing firm against the tides of the East River, forever surrounded by the clamour of justice and injustice. Hidden behind the grand streets was Slijk Steegmud Lane. This narrow alley was the service entrance of the city. Unpaved and dark, it was where the real work happened. Servants, slaves, and labourers navigated this muddy path, carrying water and waste. It was a crowded vein of the city that rarely saw the sun, teeming with the invisible workforce that kept New Amsterdam running. Jutting into the river at the foot of Brewer Street was the bridge, the city's only main pier. This was the bottleneck. Every person and every crate entering the colony had to squeeze through here. The density was overwhelming. A crush of bodies, barrels of tobacco, and piles of fur, all watched over by the weighhouse master. It was the single busiest point of entry in the entire Dutch Atlantic. Moving east to what is now Hanover Square, we see the neighbourhood shifting. As the English influence grew, this area became a dense cluster of red brick. The burghers' path led down to the water, flanked by homes that were growing taller, adding attics and dormers to fit more souls. It was becoming a vertical puzzle, a testament to the city's rapidly growing ambition. At the intersection of Broadway and Wall Street stood the Land Gate. This wasn't a lonely outpost. It was a checkpoint choked with traffic. Every morning, herds of cattle were driven out through this gate to the common pasture. Every evening, they were driven back in. People lived in the shadow of these wooden walls, building lean-tos right against the fortifications, finding comfort in the crowd at the edge of the wilderness. On Whitehall Street, the density forced life indoors to be just as cramped. Behind the brick facades of Block Q, large families, apprentices, and servants shared multi-purpose rooms. A single hearth was the centre of the universe. In these tight quarters, the Dutch culture of gezelligheid, coziness, was born out of necessity. Privacy was a luxury. Community was a survival strategy. Finally, look at the city from the Brooklyn shore. The Restitutio view shows us the result of all this crowding. The tip of Manhattan is a solid mass of rooftops, spires, and gables. By 1673, there were no gaps left. The city had filled its container. It was a dense, fortress-like island of humanity, standing defiant against the open water and the endless sky. A crowded masterpiece of wood and will.